See you later. Namaste. Hi. Thank you. Psychic Frank's Mystery School. Host Psychic Frank. There I am. And is my email address, psychicfrank11 at gmail.com. And we used to be up on Potrero Hill, but now we're here on Ninth Street. And the phones, we have no phones still. And yeah, so it's Friday the 20th, and spring sprung. A few early this morning, it was 7:46 a.m. The sun entered Aries, and now at 12:33, and I'm keeping this at 12:08. Um, Friday the 20th, the vernal equinox, spring equinox here. Sun entered Aries, as I just said, and Mercury went direct. Um, goes direct at 12:33. So in the middle of this taping, Mercury will go direct. Yeah. So I have a friend on the East Coast, uh, and we were talking yesterday, and he says you're dealing with the heat dome, so everybody on the East Coast knows is very sympathetic to us in California on the West Coast because they can't imagine this. I don't know. It just sounds. It is very deadly for a lot of people. It's climate change, which there's a lot of climate change deniers. Anyway, so yeah, but yeah, when there's an earthquake too, we get a lot of sympathy here. With so let's just get right to it because there's six planets in Aries right now as we speak. As we speak. So this, as I speak, this very moment, I'll name them off to you: the Sun, Moon, in Aries, uh, Mercury. I mean Saturn. The Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries and Venus, and interesting too. And on the 20th today, Mars does this sweet thing to Pluto. We're going to talk more about that. Yeah, so this is the new moon, sun and moon in Aries was just 2 days ago on the 18th, Wednesday. And that was activating a whole, people are always saying, oh, Frank, I wonder what's the right time to do this? What's the right time to do that? Now, now is the right time to do everything your heart wants you to do. I mean, run it by your moral compass there and make sure no one's getting hurt and it's, and if there is any hard feeling, it's for the better. But for the most part now, leave that on a horrible relationship. And it's interesting because it was when President Obama. I love President Obama. I love everybody. If I'm upset with anybody, don't interpret it as like I don't hate anyone. I'm 77. And at this stage of my life, I'd like to think I've got a little handle on understanding that, hating someone is like drinking poison, expecting them to die. I love that one. That's a real good one. But no, Obama, he was young when he became president. What was he? JFK was the youngest, so he was up there being, and as I said, I don't know what Dick Cheney, hoodwinked him. He was bamboozled. He was bamboozled because he ran hot and heavy on persecuting the war crimes. And then all of a sudden, after he got moved into the White House, he sent Nancy Pelosi and Rahm Emanuel out there saying that he wasn't going to pursue the war crimes to W. Cheney and all that administration. And I think to this day W. Bush can't go to the UK because he's a war criminal. But so you don't hear that on mainstream TV. All the news now is just totally all the talking heads on network news and even cable. They just they don't talk about what's really going on. Cable, so as I was saying, President Obama, yeah, he totally, I don't know, maybe it was fate and the angels made him do what he did. Give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't think I choose not to think that he's that evil, that he, was a Manchurian candidate or something. I think some Dick Cheney bamboozled him. Because when President Obama took off office, we were in a mess. The United States was in a mess. We were close to total the depression, close to the 1920s there. That's how bad it was. And in spite of that, President Obama took a lot of heat because his what was it called? He gave money away. What was it called? There was a word for that. Yeah, he gave out all this money. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I'm like, you know, to get the government going right. I had it written down here now, but I know because he realized when he gave close to $100,000 to Baymack to facilitate SF Commons, he knew how important SF Commons was, and that's when we had the phones hooked up. That was a new thing then, having SF Commons hooked up with phones, I think. And President Obama was really, he took a lot of heat for giving money here to all these lefty things, but he knew that he wouldn't have been elected in Chicago without Chicago's version of SF Commons cable access TV. So and then as I said, he was still president of. They just totally, thanks to London Breed, they just totally stopped tagging our shows. Bayvac let them do it. Because the San Francisco was screaming, "We have no money. We have no money." So we're going to temporarily cut off the tagging our shows. It used to be when you picked up your remote control, you would see SF Commons, Psychic Frank, or whatever. Now you probably just see SF Commons. Nobody's shows, all our producers now, you'll see it on the schedule, but not, of course, Bayvac wouldn't stand up to Comcast, who demanded $8,000 a month to tag our shows, a nonprofit. But Bayvac, took what they were given because they worked for a living. As the city hall said jump, Bayvac said how high, so that went. Because Bayvac said that the SF Commons people weren't worth that much. She actually said that to me, the woman who was running things back then. That was hard for me to swallow and not quit, because I knew then I wouldn't be doing anybody any favors. And then, as I said, it was supposed to be a temporary and get our shows retagged, and that never happened. And now there's no phones. That's just like that's just President Obama knew what was going on here and how we have a mayor who just doesn't want the phones on. It's Christy Nome just supposedly she's still around Washington, but she was let go of her job. And on her farewell little speech in front of the mass media television screens, she mentioned how her friend, mayor of San Francisco, and her had many conversations. This guy's in deep with there's something rotten in Denmark. As I said, uh, I have his chart. When I don't even know if we're going to have time to talk about that. But he was born the year he was 1 year old when Harvey Milk was he assassinated by Dan White. And it says, sadly, Harvey Milk's support for ending cannabis prohibition was cut short by his assassination in late '78. A hate crime perpetuated by our anti-LBGQ former city council member Dan White. Yeah, and he got off with the Twinkie can, the Twinkie. Oh yeah, I got home. I got home. I got home from a couple of years in Central America when the weekend, and that was when Dan White was acquitted. Yeah, I was walking around Guatemala jungles, and this guy yelled out, "Hey Frisco, they shot your mayor and some gay supervisor." And that's how I found out. And then it was like a month or two later, I was in Guatemala City getting my visa stamped, and I picked up a Newsweek, and I was like, wow, because there was no TV or anything down. I was young. I hadn't had my first Saturn return yet. Uh, yeah, so as I said, he helped pass a proposition that encouraged local law enforcement to stop arresting and prosecuting for growing, distributing, and prosecuting marijuana. So when 215 was passed, we fought. I was with an activist group called SF Commons. It's no longer in existence, and we totally were out there in all kinds of weather. Many of us are not along with us. Members are on the other side now, but they knew they were dying from all kinds of things, from kidney failure, and they were so know that cannabis was a healing medicine. Louise Hay knew cannabis was a very healing substance, but as I said, we were at Dolores Park, that high school in Dolores Park. I think the mayor of of L.A. at the time, his last name was Antonio Veras. It's a very long name, and I don't want to butcher it up. But he was there, pro cannabis, there was these like 7 or 8 of these school buses, yellow school buses, and Asian people kept on coming out of it with posters about no cannabis, no cannabis. And I said, what's this all about? How did and then I think it was Denise said to me, "Oh, this is Dan Wiener, Scott Wiener. Yeah, he rented all these buses, a fleet of buses, and paid these Chinese people to protest." And I couldn't put it together, but if you Google up how how these guys, I'm talking Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, all of a sudden, after where was this Gavin Newsom now when London Breed was throwing Ed Lee and London Breed through our civil rights, human rights under the bus? You know, the war on poverty became the war on poor people. You know, and it turns I have the names exactly about as I said, patriotism is the last refuge of the scoundrel. I love that one. That's a real good one. Greed is gruesome, causing repulsion, garish horror. It's heinous. George Conway represents, he said Trump represents all the things we teach our children not to be. It's a liar, a thief, a molester, no remorse, no shame, no empathy, no loyalty to the law or the Constitution. He lies to people, telling them he's working on their interests. Affordability is a hoax. Charlie Kirk, is on TV a lot now, because there is no mass. Everybody's drank the Kool Aid now. That's why he said we need cable access TV to have the phones hooked up. You know, please, in the sake of democracy, man. You know, you know, it's just a parlor. Yeah, he said this is Charlie Kirk. There's even video of him now saying that empathy is a made-up word by liberals. It's there's wow, wow. Yeah, and then I saw something recently at the end of World War II. They talked to supporters of Hitler. A journalist talked to supporters of Hitler, and he said of them, they could not admit that they were wrong. They would rather look like fools than terrible people. So all these Trump supporters, all these Mayor Gory supporters, Gory Laurie. Yeah, I was at one of the cannabis clubs recently, and I mentioned it. So how's your shows going, Frank? I said, oh, this mayor we got. He said, what's his name, Frank? Gory Laurie. And I said, oh, good, spread it around. Yeah, he's. I like to think he's just stupid. I'd like to think he's just ignorant, but he's more than that. He's sincerely stupid and conscientious ignorance there. You know, yeah, I can't get over this. It's saying because of the Saturn Aries conjunction, Saturn and Aries conjunction with Neptune and Saturn, 6,000 years this hasn't happened. This has all happened on Daniel Laurie's Venus. So I'm just going to let it happen. He knows where I am now. He walks right by my building. Thank God he left his thug bodyguards. This one husky guy a couple of months ago. It was last year, and I was getting some fresh air, and I was heard in the news that Mayor Lori was setting out ambassadors, people dressed in the suits, with a clipboard or something, and they were asking people how they wanted the city, to make Hayes Valley. But that didn't work. They were there only in the mornings when everything's peaceful and quiet, and just around sundown when it's noisy, and then they don't care. Um, and but it was I being this is inner Shirley Feeney in me, whose balloon never's gonna land, never Shirley Feeney and Laverne Shirley. Laverne would say to her, Shirley, doesn't your balloon ever land? Yeah, no, my balloon never and she was gonna marry a doctor, and everything was gonna come out all right. She was gonna have the white picket fence, So so this little Shirley Feeney in me thought that things were going to get better, that, sadly, that, yeah, well, anyway, I'm no longer accepting things I cannot change. I'm changing things I cannot accept. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. So, as I said, it's sort of like we're being so I don't have the exact name of the institution, but Gavin Newsom, as I said, it was only when they Donald Trump threatened to put his lily white pampered spoiled ass in prison did this new Gavin Newsom emerge out of the ethers, and now he's going to be president. Hey, that's to you. F you, Gavin Newsom, you son of a bitch. The reason he's so anti-cannabis, harm reduction, and all the things that can really help, that all to undo what Nixon did when he made cannabis a narcotic, the most idiotic thing, like Barbara Lee said of Oakland, it should never have been outlawed in the first place. But anyway, I had the name of it here. It's about the oh yeah, it's called Plump Jack Wine Industry. And it's all about they call it this name, the hospitality empire. Now their idea of hospitality is screw your liver, die a horrible death, drink, 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 drill, baby, drill, screw your liver, deal with the doctors, deal with the out of control industrial military complex. The pharmaceutical industrial military complex, they're equal, so it's easy to get those two mixed up. Uh, they just want, there's no safe drug. Cannabis is about as safe a drug as it's ever going to be, with the least side effects. And if you work your mind right, you'll have none. That's my little 2 cents there. But as I said, you wonder why Gavin Newsom's best friends now with Scott Wiener, because they're all getting billions of dollars from the liquor industry. If the Earth's going to, so I don't mean to be yelling, man, but I met many people. I love everybody. The more people I meet, the more people I love, and all these people that I fell in love with by doing healings with them over the years when I was doing my, when I was getting to be as good as I am now. And there's many healers out there. Many healers are, you know, wondering, well, if I'm, doubting their own faith. No, no, keep the faith, baby. Keep the baby faith. Keep the faith, baby. So the reason now, as I said, as Aries season begins, the sun brings its warmth, consciousness, light energy into the field of the new moon. It's actually started back in February with the Saturn Neptune conjunction. They asked me today what kind of backdrop did I want, and I wanted to go with the Saturn Neptune. I said, we've done that for 3 shows now. Listen, and this is the surprise I had now with this beautiful beautiful ski. The outside world has no authority over me, and everything is possible. um, Independence, courage, new starts. The beginning is presented now. We have not shown up before. Now is the time to do it. Six planets in Aries right this minute. And in a few seconds, Mercury's going to go direct 8 degrees Pisces. And then this Mars Saturn thing, Mars Pluto thing comes in to play for until April, gives us a chance to really boost that Mars energy to get rid of that victim consciousness. So the reason you guys who are watching me now, when the phones were on down in Potrero Hill, it still wasn't working because people would stop me on literally stop me on the street. They'd honk their horn as they rode by, and then when they saw me, they would say, "God, I'd love to call your show, Frank, but I work. I don't get home until because it would always be like late afternoon, 5 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because the FCC wouldn't let me, I guess, or anybody does what I do, be do this on a weekday morning, on a weekend morning. Like, would it be great on a Saturday morning? Turn on your TV and just call up Psychic Frank and get a reading. No charge, no strings, but yet the what do they call the an evangelical nationalist, evangelic Christian nationalist. No, this country was formed on Christian the freedom for religion, not just your religion. See, Aries is all about I, me, mine. You know, so I'm going to put your in your. So I'm telling you, before this year, the next couple of years are up. I don't want to say anything more about it. So yeah, so as I said, I went up to this bodyguard. I didn't realize he had a suit on. I thought he was just an overweight, husky, one of these ambassadors I heard about. And I said to him, "Oh, are you one of those ambassadors?" Ambassador, no smile on my face. The world's my friends. I said, I need to talk to you about this place. And I pointed to the beer garden about how they're been terrorizing our neighborhood. And he just like nasty, nasty son of a bitch. I can't, it was so nasty. I just blocked it out of my mind. But I could see the bullet. I mean, he was packing a gun. So I just totally went away, and I went, and then I saw the same son of a bitch on TV the other day and I saw that's the guy that wanted to hurt me. So yes, 2 mornings ago, I'm talking to some friends early in the morning. I don't have a dog, but I need my dog fix because my parrot won't let me have a dog. And there was what's his name? What's his name? Gruesome. What's his name? Gory Laurie, with this tall, looked like Mutt and Jeff, this really tall, lanky guy in a baby blue suit or something, with a clipboard or something. And the two of them were in their own little private Idaho. They planted these trees on Octavia Street. Must have cost, a couple of $1,000. They're all dead now. Two of them, yeah, they planted two trees, the two dead sticks sticking out of the. They plant these things and then they don't follow up with them. When you're walking by, Mr. Laurie, when you're walking by Hayes Valley there, plant to Octavia Street. 431 is my building. And look at those freshly planted, they're dead. Look at the shape they're in now. Tell your garden, we need a leader. We need a leader. You're just leading people into bad liver problems. People are waking up now. So, and 3i. 3i is right over our heads now. Oh yeah. Okay. So there's so much I want to cover here. And okay, so we covered what terrible people, um, uh, Lori and Gavin Nuisance. Yeah, he is a nuisance, isn't he? Yeah. Oh, okay. So everything's couldn't be more intense now with this Saturn Neptune conjunction, and we ain't seen nothing yet. Man, you ain't seen nothing yet because it's going to be April, April 25th. Uranus enters Gemini. We had a little month of that, a month or so of that, like last year, and then it backed up into. We had a little taste of that. That's going to be when, okay, Uranus first entered Gemini in 2025, July 7th to November 7th. On April 25th, it relentlessly enters. Isn't that an interesting Freudian slip? Gemini, and stick around until May of 2033. I'll be well into my 80s then. Aside from one dip into Cancer in 2033, um, while it backs up into Taurus like it is now, grounded nature provides a solid base for Uranus's innovative, eccentric energy. Okay, the infinite ground of being is always there for me. The infinite ground of being is always there for us. The infinite ground of being is always there for us. Say it 3 times. When you walk past, now you might not have enough money to give to anybody, or even if you could, whatever, and you see somebody really suffering, some human being, and you know that the potential, every human being has that potential. No human potential, no human has is lacked that potential, and it's a shame how Ed Lee would his whole thing was get rid of them. Get rid of them. This guy, Gavin, Breed, this numbnuts, what's his name? Gory Laurie, Dipstick. Um, they love the gay community, the rich gay community that pay the outrageous rents, who doesn't give a shit, has no empathy, who doesn't give a shit about the suffering. There was in Hair, there was this song, easy to be hard, easy to be cold. How can people be so heartless? How can people be so cruel? Easy to be hard. It's not easy to be hard. It's hard. It's hard to be hard. It's hard to be hard-hearted Hannah. And then we got Newsom now. He's got billions of dollars tied up in the Lincoln industry. You think he's going to let cannabis, have a cannabis promotion day, like it used to be, with all the cannabis healers can come, all the alternative healers now. And if you're a cannabis supporter, give up the alcohol. Give up the alcohol. If you can't, you're an alcoholic, and go get some help. No recovery places. Carl Jung said when about when they asked him what was his cure for alcoholics and addicts, he said they need a spiritual experience. They need a psychedelic experience. Oh, here's Daniel Laurie's chart. I can't find that other guy. I don't mean to be all over the place, but as I said, I've only got 1 hour, and as I said, oh yeah, so as I've said, I'm watching the news this morning. First I watched Democracy Now, so I knew what was going on, and then I watched the network news. Amy Goodman there, and on the network news now they're showing the same clip Amy showed, but they leave out the part. They leave out the part where Trump totally spits in the face with the prime minister of Japan. This woman was really nice, and the thing was he was asking Japan like he's asking all these countries he spit in their faces and slit their throats. He's asking them for help now because he's got himself in a jam, and just like Country Joe, you say we got himself in a terrible jam way out yonder in Vietnam. Well, yeah, Trump is totally got himself over his comb over, and so he's got the woman, the prime minister of Japan there. This woman sitting right across from him, and then he says to her, well, it's sort of we did to Iran what you guys did to us. You sneaked us. You sneak attacked us. And she put her head down, like, what kind of an animal would say such a rude, undiplomatic? I mean, no diplomacy. Only a heinous bully. Only someone who lacks empathy and hates and wants to destroy anybody who shows any inkling of possessing any enemy. I want see if we had the phones now, Daniel Laurie would have to answer some questions. The mother, I almost went there. Well, see, I get so angry because I love this country. I love democracy. So many of my friends, people, my family. I have no family, as I said. I'm part of a botched adoption. But so as I said, my when I moved here, my life started. I made for all, even in New York. My heroes were Angela Davis. I couldn't even go on with acting because I knew that I had a different calling, and this is it. I'd love to be the healing things at Golden Gate Park. Bring them back. Bring alternative healing back. Get some truth in advertising now. Doctors now take no, it was 2013, I believe, no more oath. Doctors used to take an oath, do no harm. Look it up. They take no harm. They can do all the harm they want. Lawyers in love, sue me, sue you blues. Doctors know they're what they're doing, but they can't give. Let's say doctors in Europe or whatever, they have they have one house, one car, one boat. No, America doctors, I got a yacht. I got three houses. I got a home here. Oh, I got a summer home up in Tahoe. Blah, 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 blah. Wasting anything is more than a bad habit. It expresses a carelessness about the world and a violence against nature. Passive violence is the fuel that ignites violence in the world. To put out the fire of physical violence, we have to cut out the fuel supply. Daniel Laurie, you're ignoring the potential of healers now. You're wasting our greatest asset now are human beings. Forget this AI crap. Human beings, especially the older guys have wisdom. When we were active with SF we were initiating, of course, the corruptness was already there and it never went anywhere. But we had a team of people who would go to seniors and get them started with little hybrids of plants. And in a matter of 3 months, they'd have a harvest that could take them through the whole year. And then how to get their buds now. They would check in with them and water them now. That was a good idea. And people on cook how to cook with cannabis. Louise Hay back in the early when I met her, AIDS had just started, and people were dying from these cocktails they called it of drugs. And I think we ran out of time now. I think we're almost out of time again. Uh, and, uh, uh, and cannabis would give them an appetite and save their lives, for at least prolong their lives. And Brownie Mary went to jail because she wouldn't stop making cannabis for that. So Mayor Laurie, you're a passive violence now. You're making life terrible for a lot of people. I believe we're just about out of time now. I think he said 12:43, and I've got 12:41 on my calendar here. Spiritual longings, the most famous idea Jung and his recognition of the psychological value of a spiritual experience. That these spiritual longings, beliefs, and experiences stem from the psychic intrinsic striving towards wholeness, uh, which required that the individual move beyond and expand their everyday view of themselves. I'm getting the pictures of when I was doing healings at the big fairs, and homeless people people with arms like pin cushions would sit with me, and can I sit with you? And then I put my hands on them, and I could see the light go off on them. And that's why I'm angry. So much could be happening now. New York's going to be New York. Las Vegas is going to be Las Vegas. LA is going to be LA. San Francisco has got Ashanti for healing now. People come here to let their hearts be, and you're just spitting in all of our faces by listening to that stupid bastard Gavin Newsom. Where was that Gavin Newsom when London breathed? You can't even mention her name at City Hall. I'm persona non grata. It's the proudest thing I've ever been proud of any title than that. And I've been given a lot of titles. I love you. I love you. We're all in my prayers. Keep the baby faith. Keep the faith, baby. I'll be back in 2 weeks. It's the Aries now. Plant something new. Use this Aries energy. This is the time. The time is right for whatever you ever wanted to do. What do you got to lose? We're already dangling off the precipice. You laugh. When you laugh in the devil's face, he disappears. God bless America. Om Shiva, Om Shiva. Namaste.